Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocate podcast. This is our Bayern Munich preview in the Champions League. Obviously, we're hoping to be kicking off our Champions League campaign, I suppose, with much more positive results. However, look, we're ever going to be the optimists here tonight, chatting about kicking off our Champions League campaign and hopefully the road to Wembley in June. But joined by a great panel of guests here this evening, joined by two debutants. Well, I suppose a debutant and a returner. And so we've Adam to the right of me, which is his first appearance on the pod. We also have returning Jimmy Williams as well from the Prestige Performance podcast, and also Julio as well. And so we've great bunch of lads here to talk about the game and also obviously just about the club we love. But first of all, Adam, welcome to the show. Obviously, it's your first podcast on. I suppose we were probably hoping for it to be in more ideal circumstances in terms of like the performances in the games. But first of all, how are you? And second of all, what did you make of the performance against Brighton there on Saturday?
All good. Brighton, it was a bit of a nightmare. It was a weird game almost. If you watch it back, we started really well. If you almost watch the first 10 minutes, like it was so aggressive. Like we were winning the press, we were creating chances, and then the goal happened, and it just flipped in its head. And I think the manager got a lot wrong on the day, but at the same time, Brighton, you can't take it away from them. They were brilliant with their B team. Almost, they're missing Evan, obviously. The next Rooney. They're missing, you know what I mean? Ansu Fati wasn't playing, you know what I mean? Just half their team was missing, but I do think we'll improve from it. But it was a really bad day in terms of everything that went on.
Yeah, it was disappointing. I think, like, look, when you look at the context of it, the first 20 minutes, I thought we were outstanding. Like we were aggressive, we pressed really well. So if you look the way Brighton, they couldn't play through our diamond. So they were trying to figure out kind of what we were doing. And I thought, like, look, it was a massive stroke by Ten Hag in the first 20 minutes. Like, in terms of the system, I thought, like, look, he's tried something different and we're reaping the rewards. But obviously, we went 1-0 down. And, yeah, look, it was a disaster from there on. So, yeah, look, disappointing game. I think, like, we badly needed 3 points, especially when you look at everyone else. When you look at the results in the Premier League this weekend, Chelsea dropping points. Obviously, they're still below us. But then you look at other teams like Spurs, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, all picking up results. It's very quickly becoming an uphill battle for top four already. And when you consider the games we do have coming up, but look, it's something that hopefully when we get these, I know we're going to discuss the injury crisis in a minute, but get a couple of heads back into, hopefully we can, the form does pick up. Jimmy, I'm going to come to you just on the performance itself against Brighton. Obviously, we've seen the tweaks De Zerbi made in the midfield. See, after they scored the first goal, we've seen Danny Welbeck come back to haunt us once again at Old Trafford. But did anything concern you in terms of an in-game management standpoint? In terms of like the substitutions and I suppose the lack of us trying to change the system, considering though Brighton were picking us apart though very quickly after the first goal.
Yeah, I mean it all concerns me. It was it's been an underwhelming start to the season. I agree with Adam. They did start well for the first 20 minutes, and it took Brighton a while to figure out that diamond. What concerned me is the fact that when they went 1-0 down, they couldn't fight and get back into the game. That's a concern. That concerns me more than the result, because you can lose games, we all know that. But the fact that it's the manner of the defeat. They go 1 down, you're expecting a reaction. The reaction doesn't come. The second goal, you're expecting a reaction, doesn't come. And I don't know what you put that down to. Do you put that down to lack of commitment? Do you put it down to lack of quality? And I've been thinking about this all weekend, actually. And I'm slowly coming around to the idea that maybe they aren't good enough. If you look at Lindelof, McTominay, Martial, these guys weren't good enough under Mourinho. They weren't good enough under Van Gaal. They weren't good enough under Solskjaer. They weren't good enough under Rangnick. They are not suddenly going to become good enough. So, yeah, look, I think Van Gaal has to be questioned too. Of course, he doesn't get out as blameless. The tactical change, the subs, sometimes they're slow to come. That's frustrating. In-game management, like you said, slow, frustrating, but I don't know, are they good enough, lads? And all the money they spent, are they a better team than last year?
No, I wouldn't say so. Like, if you look at the signings we made, I think you look at Mason Mount, was he a massive, drastic improvement on Ericsson? Off the ball, I'd say yes. Mason Mount probably would be an improvement on Ericsson. So Onana, I think he's a massive improvement on what De Gea was in terms of his distribution is being commanding. I think Joe Onana is an improvement on that. So the De Gea fan club came at me today massively over the Golden Glove last year. I think if you look at how we were better last year compared to Solskjaer and Rangnick's season, a lot of that came down to the spine United's team in Casemiro, Martinez, Varane, Bruno Fernandes in midfield. So his work rate was exceptional last year. Even look, a lot of people don't like him, but Weghorst was very good defensively as well last year. And like I think in transition that helped in a lot of games last year. But what's really concerning me is how teams are going through us right now like a hot knife through butter. Like, you know, when you look at a diamond formation, let's say, for example, when you look at diamond formation, that, like, in theory, that should limit you getting cut open down the middle. Teams should get you down the sides, which Brighton did do with their passing. But when you look at when we're playing a 4-2-3-1, the same thing is happening. We're getting caught in transition. And what really worries me at this is Ten Hag said in the summer he wants us to be a transition team. Now, obviously, attacking in transition, that's why United's best strength. But equally, if you want to be a transition team, you have to be good defensively in transition. Like, I hate him, but look at Liverpool. Look at how Jurgen Klopp has Liverpool, playing in transition. You know, obviously Virgil van Dijk, you might argue, struggles in that type of game right now. But that's how they have him playing. Arsenal, off the ball, are exceptional. How they do switch from a back three to a back four. You know, it's just really concerning right now that a team that looks so organised. Don't worry, see, your comments are showing. We will be bringing them up on screen there shortly. But what's really concerning right now is just a team that was so good on the transition last year is we're actually so bad. It's polar opposite of what it was last season, and we're coming up against a team tomorrow night who's probably one of the best teams playing in transition in world football. When you look how they progress the ball, they have a couple of injuries tomorrow, but when I seen the available players for Bayern Munich tomorrow, it really does worry me. We will discuss the game in greater detail, but Julio, I want to come to you on Casemiro, because last season, obviously, he was our best midfielder. Like, he was brilliant for breaking up play, even on the ball. Though he was good, he was an improvement on what McTominay and Fred were. What do you put his struggles down to this season? Because for large parts last season, he's a very disciplined player, though in terms of holding position, in terms of marshalling that midfield. But this year, he seems to be stepping out a lot, leaving a lot of gaps in midfield. Now, a lot of people blame that on Mason Mount, but Mason Mount hasn't played the last 3 or 4 games, and we're seeing the same things as we've seen in pre-season. What do you put that down to with Casemiro at the moment?
I don't know. I'm really at loss as to what's happening with the whole team this season. You know, last season we're seeing this cycle. Every manager, first season, we look good. We look like we've improved. And then things start going wrong. This time maybe quicker than what we usually seen for the last 10 or so years. And some of these players, we've seen we don't know if they're good enough, because we've seen this happen before, and we didn't like what we saw before. So it's, for some of these players, it's not new. But when it comes to Casemiro, I don't know what's happening. It's almost, there's parts of it where he's almost isolated in the middle of the park, but then there's other parts of it where I don't know if, it seems like throughout the whole team, decision making's gone down a bit. And I think that, I don't know if it's because there's a fitness problem. I don't know if it's a mental issue. I'm almost at loss as to how it's almost gone so wrong throughout the whole team. Ten Hag has already said this season about, like, we have a good attack, we have a good defense, but the problems are in the midfield still. And, you can say what you like, or we can't score goals, or we keep conceding goals, but through the midfield, it's a problem. And I think the key in this team is the midfield, but I'm almost lost for words. I'm watching half the time. Like, I think Ten Hag did well. I think he did good changing the system. It was nice to see a change. The issue we had was everything was coming down a certain side of the pitch, and on one side you've got, Ericsson, who doesn't exactly have the legs, and then on the other side you had McTominay, who went in the second half. I don't know. The midfield was numbered up, but we're seeing the same problem when we're playing a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, like you said. So I don't know. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if it's a fitness issue in the team. If you forget, obviously, for a minute, the amount of games and the amount of travel in pre-season, it almost looks like everyone went away, had a holiday, checked out, and then came back and just lost everything. So I don't know what is. I'm at loss as to what's going on, and because of the start of the season hasn't been good, and I worry now if things don't start changing with the players. Like, if they don't start improving, I don't know what's going to happen. I worry.
Adam, he mentioned obviously the midfield and the problems we're having. Do you think the addition of Sofri and Amrabat could help combat this? And do you see any problems with, like, the fact that United went out and bought Mason Mount for £60 million, and obviously Ten Hag obviously fancied him at Ajax when Mount was at Vitesse, and obviously he done a great. Mount did play well for a large majority in his first, I suppose, 2-3 seasons at Chelsea. Does Ten Hag almost going to have to start shifting play around and almost nearly try to fit players in? Because the fact of the matter is, you like to think in the bigger games we're going to be a bit more pragmatic. We're going to have Amrabat probably in beside a Casemiro, considering to a Casemiro struggles. And then you look at a right wing situation, to obviously Anthony and Sancho are gone for different reasons altogether, and then Mason Greenwood is out at Getafe as well. Is this a situation where maybe one or Mount or Bruno Fernandes maybe shoehorned onto that right-hand side to facilitate Sofri and Amrabat coming in?
I had a fun mind to go on the right, but the manager seems to kind of rate Bruno there. I know he operates well in right positions, but I prefer him in the middle. But I don't know. It's hard to call, because when Mainoo, Mount and Amrabat come in, we almost have too many midfielders again.
Yeah.
Saying you have Scott, Ericsson, Hannibal's there, Bruno. It goes from, we're down to like bare bones at the minute to an excess. But I was reading somewhere that he sees Amrabat as a right back too. So, well, he's almost going to try play that Zinchenko sort of role where he comes on the field and you have that box of him and Casemiro, and then almost Mount and Bruno could go forward and occupy them spaces in kind of the advanced eights. But it's hard to know. It's a good thing though. Like, you kind of knew what our midfield, and you do at the minute what it's going to be. You're going to have Casemiro sitting in two advanced players. Where, I mean, I'm trying to be positive here, but you'd almost hope we can be pragmatic. We can do the inverted role if he's good at right back. Like, I don't know much about him apart from the World Cup, but I think it's almost like a wait and see. But I do think the start of the season looks worse because of the opponents. But yet again, trying to be positive, we lost 2 and drew 1 in the reverse in the same fixtures last season. So we might still be the same level, but I'm kind of hoping after Bayern's not a write-off, but it'll be a tough one. But in that run of Burnley, Palace, Sheffield, we could pick up kind of max wins and get something going.
Yeah, look, it's definitely, like, look at the schedule, strength of schedule there. Like, I think Spurs and Arsenal away are always going to be tough games. Brighton are flying at the minute as well. But look, when you look at the home games, Wolves and Nottingham Forest, when you look at the first few minutes against Nottingham Forest, yeah, though we did concede 2 stupid goals. And then, like, the Wolves game, they played us off the park, and we were lucky, in the end to get 3 points. Like, the biggest thing for me here is that Ten Hag needs to find a balance. I think he's been unlucky though with injuries. Like Kobe Mainoo was meant to have his breakout season in midfield. Joe, and you mentioned that in kind of inverted right back role. He was playing there, Joe, pre-season as well. Joe, when you look at the Arsenal game, he done an exceptional job there. Joe, he tried to play Luke Shaw as an inverted fullback in the Wolves game as well. Like, really and truly right now, it's a situation where he's kind of having to work what he has at the minute, like especially with the injuries. I was looking at a thing on Twitter. I don't know if you lads seen it yesterday. There's almost a full starting 11 of Manchester United players injured at the moment. And when you actually look at the 11, our back four in that 11 was the back four that started against in the 2-1 win against Man City last season. You'd Wan-Bissaka out, Varane, Luke Shaw at centre half, and Malacia left back. Like, you look at the plethora of players out. I think we still should be playing better football at the moment. I think when you look at Wolves and Nottingham Forest, even to an extent, Spurs away, we should have done a lot better. I think the application, the work rate should have been so much better than it was. Like, I look at players like Rashford at the minute. He looks out of confidence compared to the player he was last season. Like, in terms of you're talking about left wingers in world football, confidence-wise, Marcus Rashford was one of the best in the world. Bruno Fernandes, look, he tries, and we know that. Yeah, sometimes he might be a bit petulant, but at the same time, you can't deny his work rate and his application for the team. I think I just look at it right now. I think the games have been tough. I think the injuries have been tough, and it doesn't help either with the stuff. Hearts. There's actually no hearts coming up. See, I don't know what's happening there, and there's no hearts coming up on screen. But yeah, look, the chat is absolutely hopping tonight. So look, I do appreciate everyone being here this evening. But yeah, look, it's been a crazy start. I think the off the field things don't help either. When Anthony's allegations come out, that's not good. Jadon Sancho having word the manager, that isn't good. And then obviously, what happened with the club trying to bring Mason Greenwood back in. I think for like dressing room morale, that does affect it. Look, all of us have probably played ball here, played some sort of team sport. Like, I think when you look at multiple different situations happening, like the failed takeover, and then the three situations there, Harry Maguire's captaincy and the media fiasco there. Like, I think right now, Jimmy, the club at the moment is in such disarray at the minute that I think what we need now is on the field results to kind of, I suppose, get rid of the kind of dramas that are happening off the field.
Yeah, and disarray is the word I would use. I see people tweeting crisis. I'm not quite a crisis. It's been 5 games. And as Adam touched on, next 4 league games are Burnley, Palace, Brentford, Sheffield United. I think we need to assess it after that.
Yeah.
If at that point things haven't improved, then yeah, maybe we're in crisis. But for now, I wouldn't be getting too excited. It's not a happy place. There's no getting away from that. The Sancho stuff, the Greenwood stuff, the Anthony stuff, the Maguire situation. It's not a happy place. Like, I don't think you can deny that. But yeah, I don't think we're quite at crisis yet.
Yeah, I don't think, like, look. If we lose a couple of more games and our rivals keep picking up points, like I'm looking at the top of the table at the minute, like we're 11 points already off top.
Yeah,
now obviously, look,
the title's gone already. Like that's frustrating.
Already. That's frustrating in itself, because for the start of the season we would have been saying, right, obviously we want to improve. I think looking at how good Manchester City are, look how good Arsenal were last season. I think.
Yeah.
Look, it was always going to be an ask to catch the two of them. But I do think we would have wanted improvement on, improvement on kind of what we seen last season. I think obviously we get into 2 finals and, get finishing third, winning the Carabao Cup. I think that was great. But I think this year we want to be closer to City, you want to be closer to Arsenal. And like, when you look at last season, we were thereabouts up until we got injuries in January, and then the board then decided to give us Vel Weghorst and Sabitzer when Joe Felix was available. And other players like that, for example. again, it just goes down to ineptitude at the club. Like you said, Jimmy, don't think we're at crisis yet. I think, look, it's borderline. We're nearly there. I think, like you mentioned, if we lose the next couple of games to Burnley away, to Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, Brentford as well, if we don't pick up maximum points or at least 9 there, to 9-10 points, I think the season can closely look like the one it did in 21-22 under Solskjaer, where he was unlucky to lose his job. Now, I think it'd be a long time before Ten Hag loses his job. I think it has to go disastrously wrong before that even comes into question. But I think in terms of competing on all fronts, that could seep away very, very quickly. Julio, obviously there's been a plethora of injuries at the minute, but Hannibal Mejbri came in on Saturday, and he showed a lot of aggression. He showed a lot of industry in midfield, and obviously he scored a very good goal on Saturday. He obviously had a great loan spell at Birmingham last season, and he's been a very highly rated by many of the fan base when he came through the academy. Do you think now with this injury kind of thing, the thing we have in midfield right now, and you look at the lack of energy that maybe Christian Eriksen does give us off the ball, is this an opportunity for Hannibal to kind of stake a claim with obviously the Carabao Cup coming up and other games, coming in such a quick fashion?
I personally think Ten Hag doesn't have much of a choice at the moment. We've seen Hannibal come on and show a bit of fight in the game. Now, granted, that was Liverpool away. We just got smashed, and then he just came on and started smashing some of their players, and we all almost fell in love with him for that. But look, I think when he came on, he brought something to the table that it looks like we haven't got at the moment, and I think you can't go wrong with that. I think now is probably the perfect opportunity for him. He had a great loan spell last year. There was links to a move away. We wasn't sure if it was a loan or a permanent transfer because of straight up profit for the board, because the board were trying to get as much money as possible in the summer. But I think I'd personally love to see him get more of an opportunity, not just him but other players as well. I mean, Kobe Mainoo's coming back, which is a good sign, but with other, because we know Ten Hag likes to go far in competitions. And if there's one thing we criticised Ten Hag for last season, was not utilising the squad enough. Granted, you could argue he didn't trust some of the players in, like, if he was to pick a second team or a third team, he doesn't trust enough of those players. But I think Ten Hag is at a stage right now where he needs to start not learning, but almost like adapting to what's going on at the minute. Like, I'm happy for him to be stubborn to get his way across. But in some cases, like, for example, in terms of using personnel, for example, I think there are some, like, for example, we always criticize whenever he puts Bruno on the right wing, or if Mount comes back in, we may criticize Mount for going on the right wing. So I think that when you're looking at personnel, right now, Ten Hag needs to have learnt from last season almost and utilize the squad as much as he can. I think he was very safe. It was a very safe bet moving in for Reguilon in the summer, because obviously we just loaned out Brandon Williams. We lost 2 left backs to injury, and all we had was Alvaro Fernandez or Dalot. Now we've lost Wan-Bissaka as well to injury, so we're running short of options there. So I think that now we've got so many injuries, and we've now got we've got something different in each player. There's a variety in there. So it was great to see him score at the weekend. The Twitter hate he got online was a bit ridiculous. Yeah, how else? You want to celebrate your first goal for the club, but at the same time, you want to get the crowd going. And it's almost like there's no other way he could have done that. So, but yeah, I think now is probably the best chance Hannibal Mejbri has to be given opportunities. Whether Ten Hag does it, I don't know what's going through his mind, but I'd be a little bit surprised if we don't see more of Mejbri in the coming weeks.
Yeah, look, I think when you look at the midfield options, they're very bare at the moment, especially when you look around the number 10 position. The fact of the matter is, everyone's calling for Facundo Pellistri to be put out on the right-hand side, and I think, look, when you look at the plethora of players like not available there. In theory, he should be there, but Ten Hag just for whatever reason, I don't think he fully trusts him to start there. He's getting game time in terms of minutes off the bench, but it's clear that he doesn't trust them, because you look at like Anthony and Sancho not being available, like the logic will tell you that Pellistri should be starting there. But when you look at the right wing, I think he, like Adam mentioned a minute ago, he likes Bruno Fernandes out there. And Bruno did do a good job in a lot of games there last year. But when you look at Bruno's best position, it is in centre midfield. So I think that's where, at the moment, I think that's where Hannibal's opening might be if Ten Hag, with these injuries and other situations, does decide to play Fernandes out on the right. We may see Hannibal get games in midfield. Mason Mount is close to return. Can he make an impact after a slow start? Kobbie Mainoo back on the grass today. That's great to see. Getting a couple of players, back, I think will help. I think just the overall morale in the dressing room at the moment must be low. I think it's very hard. Like in any workplace, like if your bosses are inept, and if your bosses don't give a shit, your team morale is gonna be shit. And then, like, if there's a publicized, takeover happening and then it's not happening, and the manager is getting undermined for signings for certain positions, I think there's a lot. Like, I think Sean Carroll mentioned it in the comments there a second ago. The off the pitch stuff is slowly coming onto the pitch, and it's hard. It's hard at the moment, and I think. Look, and I said it a few minutes ago, and I will reiterate. I think if we start getting results on the pitch, I think if we get a big win or two, the season can turn around, and we can challenge the top four. I think. Look, the Champions League group. Me personally, I do think it's a tough group we have. I think Galatasaray are going to be a hell of a tough game. I actually seen some of the players they have, and we all know Galatasaray ways historically to a tough game. I don't think Copenhagen are even going to be a pushover away from home as well. And we know even with a full team, our struggles away from home in terms of mentality when things go wrong. So yeah, we do need to push forward now and hope for better results. But we're gonna kind of move forward and kind of switch gears. Adam, we're gonna chat about Harry Kane. Obviously, he's gonna be playing against us tomorrow in the Champions League. We are heavily linked to him in the summer, and obviously, there was reports early July that the club were pulling out, because we couldn't afford it. Obviously, briefs have come out today that it was specifically Richard Arnold and Joe Glazer, like two people who are very qualified to know about football, to say that Harry Kane was too expensive, and to back down on the signing. Like, talk to me. Like, what do you make of that? Like, obviously, we know Richard Arnold is trying to preach to the crowd about being this new man. I'm going to be different than Ed Woodward, but doesn't seem like that, does it?
On the Kane one, I get why they done it in terms of if we had no Frankie de Jong, it would have been a nightmare summer. I know we didn't have almost the summer the fans wanted, but if we were going into that Spurs away game without any signings and chasing Kane, it does go that way. And Levy, we know what he's like. Even when we were going for Michael Carrick, Berbatov, he dragged them, especially Berbatov. He took it to deadline day. So,
or he had to kidnap
one of them. But hopefully the Haaland deal does work out. But Harry Kane is sensational, isn't he? Best striker in the world with Haaland. I think Gary Neville said that he's gold. He would have come in and scored 30 goals, but at the same time, it almost shows, hopefully, that we're moving in the right direction, that we're not going to get involved in these sagas. And, like, for example, if we were going for Keane, we wouldn't have got Onana. And I think, even though people are kind of getting on him at the minute, I think he's a big upgrade. And if we kind of improve the team further and start playing out from the back, you've got the keeper to do it. One of the best about. Like, you have to listen to Pep on that. But I would love to. I think I said to you, Keane, I'd love Harry Kane. It's like him and Evan Ferguson to be 1 and 2 for me, probably, for strikers in the world that we could get. But yeah, hopefully it works out, kind of going for the young route and getting our business done early.
Yeah, look, I see that point of view. But the thing about it is, for me, is Ten Hag has so much credit in the bank. He earned a lot of respect last season for, like, when you look at that current squad, getting third. and getting to 2 cup finals. And you can argue that FA Cup final was lost in moments, like in terms of our own doing, rather than actually Manchester City being better. For me, when Ten Hag had that much credit in the bank, did so well, and you look at the level of Man City and Arsenal were at, yes, I understand going down that young route, but at the same time, when Harry Kane is there and Harry Kane's available, and Spurs gave the price, if we didn't make a balls of that Maguire-McTominay 60 million deal off West Ham, we could have bought Onana anyway, and as well as buying Kane, So, like the thing about it is, you're vetoing a manager who, like you're saying, you're going to back, but when the world's best striker is available, yes, Daniel Levy is hard to deal with, but when they quoted the price, like, look how complete he is, and you're looking at playing through the middle and how good he is on the ball in terms of creativity, not just his goal scoring. I think for me, he just would have been perfect in this team. But obviously, look, the club are saying they're going down a young route, but I think it's a missed opportunity, because I think Rasmus Højlund, myself, and Jimmy, I want you to come in on this. I think this young kid's going to be under a lot of pressure this season to over-deliver almost, because of the struggles that are happening at the minute.
I agree. Ideally, you would have Højlund and someone like a Harry Kane. You would have the senior striker, and you'd have a young striker like Højlund learning from him. All of a sudden, he's found himself as United's number 1 striker, and we're all looking at him to score goals now, which is, it's tall order. It's going to take time. He's only young. I like what I see from him, though. He's not afraid to throw his weight around. He's a number 9 that we haven't had for a number of years now. He's different to what whatever Martial does, Rashford. He's kind of more of a target man. I'm just looking at one of the comments here. Richard James says, still yet to be convinced Onana is for us. And I'll go back to your question in a minute, Keane. I agree, Richard. I mean, we're speaking about Onana's distribution. That's lovely, but what's a goalkeeper's primary objective? Is it to save the ball and stop goals going in, or is it to distribute? Now, I know what people are thinking. Modern game has moved on. You have to be better with your feet, etc., etc. And I'm not one of those people who's going to say De Gea would have saved that. I'm not saying that. But what's a goalkeeper's primary objective here? Is it to stop balls going in the net, or is it to distribute the ball? So that's my comment back to Richard James. I think United did miss an opportunity with Harry Kane. Very surprised. This is a club who told Jose Mourinho he couldn't have Harry Maguire when they came second. Eventually we got Harry Maguire, we all know that. But they overruled his signings. United came second. They had a chance to build on it. They had a chance to move forward and get closer to Man City at that time. And the board overruled them. So are we shocked really that they're doing it again? It doesn't matter if it's a football club or if it's Tesco. The problem started at the top, and I think Kane would have elevated United to a team who could seriously challenge for the Premier League. And yeah, it's frustrating, but I think the things are not going to change while the Glazers are the owners of United. We're saying the same stuff every year, and I don't see it changing anytime soon, unfortunately.
You mentioned things won't change, and it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but we see it all the time. We get a new manager bounced. He does well first season, second season. Now, we didn't even get to Ten Hag's second season. We kind of almost doubled our progress in the first season, in terms of getting top 4. Next season after would have been getting to winning the trophy or cup final, similar to what Solskjaer done in season 2. But Ten Hag done both of them things in season 1. So if he's after elevating our progression in season 1, then like you do a high performance podcast, Jimmy, about talking about elevating performance and reaching elite levels. Obviously, United are slightly below that elite level, but we done very, very well last season.
Yeah,
that's like any proper football club would be like, right, who's the best in class we can go in and get? Højlund has the potential, I think, to be best in class. Time will tell. Do I think Onana, he proved last season he could be a best in class goalkeeper? Jury's out on him. Look, to be fair, I think there's parts of his game he's done really well. I think, like, obviously, some of them shots you could say, hand on heart, yeah, he could have saved. But at the same time, like, look, football's football and things happen. But I think there's just the football club will never reach that level because the owners are only fixated on getting Champions League football, and that's their cutoff point. They know they have to do X, Y, and Z to reach that elite level, which means putting their hands into their pockets and not taking dividends. Paying off the debt to eventually to allow us not be crippled by financial fair play. And I actually think like a club the size of Manchester United, for them to be using financial fair play as an excuse, I think is absolutely scandalous. They consider the revenue streams that they make every year. But it comes down to the fact that the Glazers have taken so much out of the club and there's so much wrong at the club financially. And obviously you can say COVID hit the club as well. Then that 2 years did hit the club financially. I was speaking to Kieran Maguire here on the podcast a couple of months ago, just to start the transfer window. And he did say that did have an effect. But he also did say that Man United have a credit facility in the bank if they wanted to spend big in the summer. Now, we did spend big, but we could have spent more. Kieran Maguire made that very, very clear on the podcast recently. But I think, look, we badly need this takeover to happen. I think for any resemblance of I'm going to say relevant progress, because Manchester United shouldn't be a team. And look, this isn't me being on my high horse and saying we have a right to be challenging for the title. We have a right to win the league. But when you look at a club of this stature and the previous success that we've had, why drop your standards? Why should the fan base drop its standards just because there's people over in Florida who don't know what the offside rule is? Like,
it's not the same United anymore, Keane, is it? Like, as much as people in this podcast or the comments don't want to admit it, this is not the same United that we saw under Ferguson. It's a different game altogether. That United is long gone, and they are a mile away from coming back. That's my honest feeling. A mile away from it.
It is. You're spot on, and that's the thing. It took the Glazers a decade to belittle the fans' expectations. So to obviously look, realistically, like I said at the start of the pod, we should, but not that we shouldn't have, but we probably wouldn't challenge to a full-fledged title challenge this year, but we should expect more progress.
Yeah.
But the Glazers have curtailed our expectations to a point where we're not expecting realistic progress because the results are there. Like there's a clear pattern of manager does well in first year, manager does relatively well second year, and then year 3 they're gone. Van Gaal happened, Mourinho happened, Solskjaer happened. Will Ten Hag see out year 2 with the amount of shit that's going on? I won't be surprised if that man, like, because he holds himself in such a high regard and such a high standard, I won't be surprised if he walked this season because of the shit that's going on at the club. And I wouldn't blame him. I wouldn't blame him one bit, to be completely honest. But look, we're going to move on, Julio, to the game itself. Bayern Munich are obviously, they're doing reasonably well in the Bundesliga. Though Harry Kane seems like himself that he's actually, he's flying. Though he's obviously scoring a couple of goals. It seems like it's business as usual for Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. Looking at the opposition, obviously they're one of the best teams in the world. And I think if you look at Manchester City, you're probably favourites to win the Champions League. But looking at the signings Bayern have made this summer, Kane, Kim Min-jae, etc., should they be a team that should be seriously challenging Manchester City in the Champions League? Because last season they Choupo-Moting up front, and I think they had that missing piece in the striker. Now Harry Kane's come in. Do you think they should seriously be challenging the likes of Manchester City and Real Madrid for the Champions League this year?
I mean, my personal opinion actually of Bayern is no. Now, that's nothing to do with the transfers. That's to do with the fact that from what I've seen of Bayern, obviously Kane's getting the goals. They're looking good, but I've just never been convinced of Thomas Tuchel there. Last season, for example, they had the league in their hands, then they gave it away, and then Dortmund went, no, we don't want it. You can have it, almost on the final day. So, and just everything I've seen, and, there seem to be these leaks that Tuchel is at odds almost with the board from some of the stuff I've read. I'm just not convinced by this Bayern Munich team, no matter how good the players are. They could have had Cristiano Ronaldo in their team last season, like prime Ronaldo. and I still wouldn't be convinced by it. So, I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous. Listen, going into the game tomorrow, I don't think that will matter anyway, because I think that Bayern Munich, we don't have any momentum to take. We don't really have any almost vote of confidence going into the game tomorrow. And it's really sad to say that, because this has been a big fixture over the years. Like, I know it's been a while since we've played them, but even the last time we played them, granted, we were a Danny Welbeck trying to chip the best goalkeeper in the world at the time away from potentially maybe beating them at home, and then we went taking that victory to the away leg. But even though our record doesn't look good against them, I just think that even though they've got good players, I mean, they're out with I don't think they've got key players tomorrow. I think Joshua Kimmich has been reported he's unavailable. There are some others as well. So I don't know, but I just, how do I put this? Obviously, going into the game tomorrow, I'm worried, but more from a Manchester United perspective as opposed to who we're facing. It's almost like it's more of a, we might look really bad tomorrow, and as a result, we may make them look even better than maybe what they are. Me personally, I wouldn't be surprised if Tuchel gets sacked during the season. I know it sounds ridiculous to say now, but I don't know. Tuchel keeps losing his job at different clubs because he keeps falling out of favour with the board. He keeps arguing, and that seems to already be happening. And we're 4, 5, 6 months into his reign. So on paper, when you look at the players, they should be well up there with the likes of Real Madrid, Manchester City, and other teams. But I don't know. I just feel like even though Keane was the missing piece, there's something wrong there that I just can't put my finger on.
Yeah, it's weird. I do think, though, I'll be honest, when you look at the depth in their squad, I think they'll have enough to definitely reach the latter stages. I looked at how they actually played against City, especially in the second leg. They missed a heap of chances. And I felt like if they'd even, like, let's say a lower, like not a lower level, but let's say a below kind of a lead striker like Kolo Muani or someone like that up front, they would have won that game. They possibly would have went through. But look, I think obviously Thomas Tuchel, he has a habit, don't he, of kind of falling out with his boards. He fell out with the board Dortmund, fell out with the board of Chelsea. Now, you know kind of what happened there with Todd Bowley. There was kind of a mess in the first couple of months. But look, I thought he'd be probably the manager and maybe might help him win the Champions League. But look, time will tell. I do think he should piss the Bundesliga in all realism. Because Dortmund always bottle it towards the end of the year. We've seen that. They never kind of get over that final hurdle. I think, look, having Kane there, he's gonna score a heap of goals in that league. Like, look, come on, what's his name? Reece Nelson from Arsenal bagged a load of goals over there. Mkhitaryan, Jadon Sancho looked like an absolute world beater there. He looked like one of the best in the world. I don't know if he's that now. I really don't. That's another discussion for another day. There's a lot going on there. But look, I think they'll be all right. I think they'll win the league there. But in terms of Champions League and in terms of their progression, I do think that they'll top this group. I'm under no illusions that won't happen. Now, look, Solskjaer once said that mountains are there to be climbed. And look, we have got big results, in Europe before. But I'd always love being the optimist. I said it before PSG away 2 years. It was actually the first year this podcast had its inception. I was on here with 5 other lads. And lads were saying 4-0 PSG, 3-1 PSG, whatever. I was the only one that said 2-1 on that night, on the preview the night before. Came to fruition. And we'll give our score predictions and that in a minute. But Adam, do you have any sort of optimism? Considering our away record, in Europe last year, our away record was good. Domestically, not so much. What ways do you think Manchester United themselves, looking at ourselves, fuck Bayern Munich and their strengths for a minute. How can Manchester United hurt Bayern Munich tomorrow?
I think on the counter-attack, Rashford against German teams has shown previously he can just be disruptive. Like, if you remember that game that came on against Red Bull, playing against a high line, just tore it apart. And obviously Bayern are a different beast, and they've got really good centre halves, and Konrad Laimer's a workhorse. But if you can get Rashford in behind, Højlund holding the ball up against Kim Min-jae and Upamecano, I think we can score goals. The other end, not so much. It could be an issue, kind of with not like even calling the players out, just bare bones defensively. I think Johnny Evans is like the only backup defender in the whole squad going, which kind of sums it up. But
we've 5 goalkeepers and 4 defenders going over to Germany.
with 5 keepers,
Yeah,
it does not sum it up like.
Can I even play centre back?
Or
Onana
midfield,
probably.
but no.
But yeah, look, it is tough. I think like if I look at Bayern Munich myself, I probably look at Upamecano. It's probably the one for me in that back four that Manchester United can exploit. I think like you look at in the big games last season, he's very dodgy, even against Ireland. In the international games, Upamecano, was someone that we could have got at. Adam Ida, gave him a bit of a time. I know in France, I know we think great much, but he was disruptive. There as well. If only Ireland had Evan Ferguson in them 2 games, me, Jimmy, and Adam probably be talking about different in terms of international and planning their trips. But yeah, I think Upamecano is definitely the one I think we can get at. I think if Bruno Fernandes can get a bit of space in midfield, if Bruno can start putting them penetrating passes, in for Rashford, in for Højlund, get in behind. It depends where Bruno starts tomorrow, and it depends what system we play. I think the fact that we're missing Anthony tomorrow, as much as people don't rate him, I think with Bayern's high line and the way his work rate is, he's probably someone who could have been key. Obviously, for obvious reasons, he's not going to be playing. But I think the key players are Højlund, probably Bruno and Rashford tomorrow. That can help us. Maybe Serge Reguilon as an overlapping fullback tomorrow. He showed a lot of promise. On Saturday, albeit now against Brighton, who look, they're a good team, but they're not Bayern Munich, are they? So I think that's they're the place I think we can hurt them. But it's a tough ask. Like, look, I think going to Germany, going to playing Bayern Munich, they're an old rival. Look, there's history in this fixture. We've done it against the odds before. Obviously, the 99 final is the biggest example of that, but we're nowhere fucking near that 99 team. Like, you talk about bare bones, that midfield going into that day was missing Paul Scholes and Roy Keane, David Beckham, Nicky Butt in midfield, done a great shift that day, Giggs and Blomqvist as well. But yeah, it's a tough ask. I think, like, can you say it's a free hit? I don't think you can say that. I still do think there's standards that you need to have as a Man United team, that you go in there and you work back, you run, you try your hardest. I think when you looked at us off the ball against Brighton, Jimmy, we're talking about performance. I remember we're talking about the basic work rate. There was a lot of that we didn't see off the ball on Saturday. And would you be concerned? Obviously, Dave, the likes, I know Coleman is out, but likes of Gnabry, Leroy Sané, Goretzka, players like that who can hurt you in a second. What are you thinking system wise? What can United do defensively with the current players available? What would you be thinking right now that Ten Hag can maybe do defensively? Does he go 5 midfield? Does he go to a 3-5-2, maybe a back 5? What do you think we can do to be a bit more solid in transition in this game?
It's the $1 million question, isn't it? First of all, I'd like to thank Richard James for that very graphic image.
I'm not going to bring it up on screen, but yeah, the comment section has been very lit tonight, I must say.
I think we'll see a 4-2-3-1 maybe, and we'll try and hurt them on the counter, like Adam says. I don't think we'll see a back 5. I don't think we will. We still have to try and do what we can do as well. We have to hurt them. We have players that can hurt them. Am I optimistic? Not really. There's always a chance. If there's not a chance, what's the point in watching? What's the point in all the fans who are going over are going if there's no chance? I don't know. It's going to be really difficult tomorrow. I can't see them. On one hand, I'm saying there's always a chance, but if I'm being honest, I don't see him getting anything from this game. But I don't think the squad is decimated with injuries. Just let's not lose our heads totally. We're not expected to win this game. It's the next games I'm concerned about. That's when the problems start. If we lose to Burnley, Brentford, Sheffield United, then we are in big trouble. Losing to Munich, it's disappointing. Yeah, of course we want to see him do well, but we're not going to be judged. Our season's not going to be judged off this game. It's the games ahead where we really need to do better. And you're right. Yeah, off the ball, they didn't work hard enough. And that has to be the most basic, non-negotiable from a player. Even if you're not at that elite standard, around about high performance, around about elite, they're not all elite. That's okay. But you have to run back. You have to show the correct body language out of possession. You have to do the basics. And they don't do the basics all the time. And it's not good enough to do it for 20 minutes here and there. It's not good enough to do it in spells or moments, as you touched on earlier. They are a moment team. It's not good enough. You have to do it for 90 minutes. But to answer your question, no, I don't see him getting much from tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a tough ask, and I think the one thing it's not an ex. Please Christ, Newcastle nearly just scored a winner there in injury time. Fuck me. But yeah, I think the basic expectation I would have, I'm not expecting us to go there and get a result, but one thing I do expect and I want is an improvement on the work rate, is an improvement on the defensive shape. I think you're professional footballers. Look, they earn a lot of money, and this is not me critiquing them for making money. Like, football is a very, wealthy game. Obviously, most players deservedly at the elite level are paid what they're paid because they're the best in class. But when you play for Manchester United and you don't run back, you're leaving your runners go. You're just standing around, you're moaning, you're diving. I think there's things like that I think, look, if Roy Keane was in that dressing room, Rio Ferdinand, Ryan Giggs, Brian Robson, players like that, Eric Cantona, if they're in the dressing room, they've seen some of the body language and some of the things that these players have done in the last couple of games. I think that swinging punches, I think, is the nicest thing I could say what they'd probably do in that dressing room. But it's just about having standards. You need to have standards to play for United. I think, look, when you look off the ball, wherever about these players, we all know, like, Rashford's a threat, Bruno's a threat. Sancho, when he's on his day, is a brilliant player. Martinez, Rafael Varane, Casemiro, fucking winners. But when you're not working and you're not working hard, that just annoys me. You can't. You get paid that much money. You play for the biggest club in the world, arguably. A certain level of professionalism you have to have, and if you don't have that, fuck off. That's just.
Is that on the manager or is that a player thing?
I think it's collective. To be completely honest with you, Jimmy, I think the manager has to set a standard, and if them players aren't working, then effectively you have to drop them. You have to make a statement. You have to show that they're like. What did Richard Arnold say to the lads in 1958 that day in the pub? There's a no dickhead policy. That shouldn't be just for people on the board or the owners. That's everyone in the fucking club. There should be a no dickhead policy. But with these players, the fact of the matter is, if they're willing to down tools for a third manager, like you said, Jimmy, that's a cultural thing. That just isn't Ten Hag or Solskjaer or Mourinho or Van Gaal or Ralph Rangnick. Fucking hell, it's the players. And I think it's a mentality thing. And the problem is, with the current ownership model we have, we can't move them on in an appropriate manner.
No.
That's the thing. And then when the shit goes from the top, it's like any workplace, it goes downhill and it goes down to its employees. And it's a tough road where we are, and I think it's something that even with new ownership, whether someone is pro Jim Ratcliffe or someone's pro Qatar or someone's pro whoever comes in, at the end of the day, there's players here, I think, with a mentality that need to be shifted. I'm not going to single anybody out because I think that's just a wrong thing to do. I think it's a collective. The group have showed a weakness when things aren't going their way, especially away from home. See, when they're at Old Trafford, they know they don't have that safety blanket of kind of reverting to type because you're at home. There's 75,000 people there, to back you and make it hard for the other team. But when this group is away from home, and the minute if they concede early on in a game, they never have that fight to come back, ever. And that's what this club is built on. And we look, like Jimmy said, we're a shell of that right now, and it's something that I don't think is going to resolve itself anytime soon. But what we will do, and we always do at the end of our preview podcast, is we do get our score predictions in the panel. The last couple of podcasts we've had, the score predictions haven't been great. Greg the other night said 3-0 Brighton. He nearly got it right. So obviously Man United got that goal. And the Brighton lads were very confident when they were on the other night. But I'll come to you first, Adam. What's your score prediction for tomorrow night?
I'm delusional, so I'm going to go 2-1 United, but that's my heart and not my head, but we'll go with it.
Look, Adam's going 2-1 United. Jimmy said a minute ago he wasn't too confident. What are you thinking for tomorrow? Is it a heart or is it a head situation, or is it an educated guess on Paddy Power? What's the crack?
Oh, I don't know, man. I just see Sean's comment here. He says the performance is more important than the result. I agree. I'm expecting a reaction. And if I don't see a reaction, then I'll be really disappointed. Score prediction. I'm going to go for 3-0 to Bayern.
Then he's going 3-0 Bayern. We've 2-1 from Adam. Julio, I'm going to put you on the spot now. What's your score prediction?
One thing I will say is, no matter, if we won 4-0 tomorrow, for example, granted we'd be happy, but when we come back to earth the morning after all the alcohol we'll have had tomorrow, if we all drink, it doesn't change what's happening at the moment. No. The players need to go out there and give a performance worth being proud of, because it's almost like we're not seeing that. I think realistically, when you've got Champions League Marcus Rashford against Deo Upamecano, I think there is a goal there, maybe two. The way Ten Hag needs to set up in a way which plays to his best player's strengths. We can't. He came out there was this leak somewhere, report. I can't remember. I read it briefly. I don't know if you guys saw it, where apparently Rashford might have a new position tomorrow. I don't know if this is going to be. I don't know how credible that is. For all we know, this could be Ten Hag going, right, let's play 4-4-2. Let's just go back old school, whatever. But I'm going to go. I'll go 2-2. I know it seems a bit like it's optimistic, but I think if the players play to their strengths on a big occasion, then I think that it will be going forward, that is, in attack, then I think we can get a goal or two, because Bayern aren't exactly at their strongest at the moment at the back. Their first choice goalkeepers out, they're rotating their right back and Konrad Laimer, who can play there, but is more predominantly more of a holding midfielder. So he'll be in midfield. So I think Mazraoui will be at right back. I just think that given the way we are the other way, Bayern will pose a huge threat, and I don't think we'll come away with a win. If we play at our best, we'll get a draw, I think, with a couple of goals.
Yeah, score draw. It is probable because United do score goals on the break, but it's just whether Lindelof can not make a mistake for 90 minutes, which is something I don't have any hope in, to be completely honest. I'll never forgive him for that FA Cup final, by the way, that weak header in the first 15 seconds. I said it once, I'll say it again, I'm never going to forgive that man for that first 15 seconds of that FA Cup final. But on a lighter note, my head says Bayern Munich win, and it's telling me all day, over 3.5 goals, both teams to score, Bayern Munich win. But my heart is just, I never can go against the United win in my predictions. I'm going to go the same as Adam. I'm going to go 2-1. And just for shits and gigs, I'm going to go Bruno Fernandes winner from the penalty spot. Just with VAR controversy, I think that would just, football Twitter would just be going off his head tomorrow night. I'd be here for all the chaos and all the drama. Yeah, that's our score predictions. And do drop your score predictions in the comments live now, or if you're watching or listening on the replay, you'll give our score predictions here or even below our Twitter page as well. But look, thanks very much to Jimmy, Adam, and Julio for coming on. Hope you enjoyed your first pod. I hope you can come on again. And Jimmy as well. It's good to see you back as well. Jimmy was one of the ones from the early days back when we just had a Twitter page and we were doing. Remember the other way Twitter Spaces are actually a thing now. We were doing live Twitter podcasts before Twitter Space were actually a thing. So yeah, look, that's how far back my relationship with Jimmy goes on this podcast, fellow Clonmel man. But yeah, look, great to see all of you again. Great to see Joe new face in the comments as well as some regulars as well. It's good to see. And yeah, look, as Richard said in the comments, so do like, share, and subscribe as well. We do appreciate your support. Mark will be reviewing the game tomorrow night, roughly about 10 o'clock. Depending on obviously how much out of time is there, and he'll have his own panel there. And then I'll be back then for the Burnley preview, probably Friday night. All things dependent. But look, thanks very much, lads, and look, we will see you tomorrow.
Cheers.